Hello, hello. I just finished watching A Sun, a 2019 film by Chung Mong Ho, a Taiwanese director. This was directed, co-written, and co-written by him. Tells the story of a family with two sons, the younger of which, in the opening of the movie, with a friend, Radish, uh, bursts into a restaurant and chops off that, and Radish, his the friend, chops off the hand of a guy of another young guy, and the hand flips into a pot of boiling soup and submerges. That's the final shocking scene we see in the opening. Um, Aho, the younger son, gets prosecuted for this. Uh, Apparently, this was somebody who had been bullying him, and they had gone there. And even though Radish had the machete, he, uh, Aho claims that he didn't realize that he was going to actually use it on the guy. He ends up getting um, like a lighter sentence than Radish, who perpetrated the crime, goes to juvenile. Um, at the same time, and the father, who is a driving instructor, is like basically kind of washes his hands of the whole thing. And like at the end, his wife's like, well, why didn't you try and help him? It's like, I gave him a chance to go repent and pay for his crime. So, and his father is always going on about seize the day, choose your path. It's his motto, and it's sort of the facile motto, kind of motivational motto for the driving school, where he's like an instructor. So he's a pretty low level guy himself. Um, but they have another son, and indeed is the only son that really he acknowledges, which is the older son, who is, Aho is a small, skinny guy. His older brother is tall, built, good looking, and is at a cram school for his getting his medical degree. And I guess he failed the first time, and now he's doing it again. But he comes across as extremely, he's like shy, but he's a really kind of solid guy. Though the opening scene, we have a thing of him kind of questioning his teacher in the literature class about, you know, I think it may be a philosopher, and it's just like, well, why should we care? Something like that. And he doesn't say it with like malice or anything. It's just like, why should I care? And the professor's like, I don't know, get the hell out of my class. And it's very much, he's like in a sea of people who are all just sort of doing this cramming. There's a scene where he's sitting at these tables, and he sits up, and they're empty, and then suddenly they're all full, and it's all full of all these people kind of keeled over asleep on the things, like they're just wearing themselves down. Um, and we kind of go through his life. Uh, Aho, it turns out, got a girl pregnant. Brother takes her to the juvenile, but is not allowed to in. He breaks the news to Aho that, yeah, your your girlfriend is pregnant, and Aho's really pissed off because no one's told him. Kind of takes it out on the brother. Um, I don't know how long later, but the brother commits suicide, and there's so many movies and stuff like that where like the brother will commit suicide, which is just like, someone will commit suicide and it'll get melodramatic, but it's just like more like everyone's completely shocked. It feels like it comes out of nowhere. Spoilers, I guess, by the way, though I don't know if it is a spoiler, however you feel about stuff like that. But it's just like the unknowability of it. And we do get hints because a girl comes to them and says, I was sort of his friend. I wanted to be more, but I don't know if he wanted it. And tells of like him telling a story of a philosopher finding all these kids and him saying like, oh, but there's still one kid left that we haven't found yet. And they search until they come to like a big water tank, and it's a giant vase, and all the kids are like, oh, it's in there, and the philosopher picks up a rock and smashes it open, and no water comes out. And then they look inside and they see in the darkness there's a child sitting in the water tank. And he asks the girl, do you know who it was? She says, she's like, shakes her head. And he's like, it was the philosopher as a child. And it's like, it's the saddest image of this child sitting in the dark of this empty water tank. And it's like, and apparently he felt like he had nowhere he could hide. He was always under examination. I think it's always under the glare, perhaps, of his father's expectations of his, seize the path, seize the day, choose your path. And at the end of the movie, we see that his father's been giving them for year after year after year. And you think, this kid has just been ground down until he just had to escape. And indeed, when the act happens that we never see, we just know that he's jumped from a height and killed himself. It's like the sun goes over. The clouds go over the sun. And so Aho, the discarded son, the neglected son, the one that was just put aside, that he wouldn't even acknowledge for years, even before this, was kind of filled with that kind of rage for that. Radish comes back and starts leaning on him and pulling him deeper and deeper into kind of criminal stuff, even though he's really trying to just he's got a crappy, car washing job, and he's working at a convenience store. It's like he's working hard to try and be out of it. But Radish comes back and pulls him in a variety of different things. And it's like, and finally he takes him out, forces him to take one of the really luxury cars that he's washing out after work out into the countryside. And it's like, okay, here's this pack, take it, and take it out to this thing and ask for oranges. And he does that, and he gets pulled into basically a mafia thing. There's a machine counting out bills and stuff like that, and he's given a pack, and he goes back to the car, but Radish is gone, and it's raining, and he's calling for Radish, but Radish is gone. And so he goes back. He takes the car back. He looks in the pack that they've given him, and it's full of money. He's like, fuck, it's full of money. At the same time, all around the same time, the father has gotten completely fucked up. With the death of the older son, his hope, I guess. And he gets told to take time off because he starts talking about it at work. He starts talking about his son killing himself, and it's like, you need to take off work. We don't need this. But he doesn't come home anymore because he can't face Aho. Doesn't even want to look at him. I don't know if it's anger or so much as shame. He's the discarded son, and now he has no son. And he ends up living in like the little dinky kind of staff room at his work. And there's no sign of Radish, no sign of Radish at all. And suddenly, at one point, Aho's walking along, and a van screeches up behind him. He gets yanked in. It's the mafia guys, and they pull him in. And they beat the shit out of him, or at least give him one good whack and just make his nose completely bloody. He's bleeding all over himself. You think, fuck, they're gonna kill him. And it's like, no, all the money is still there. It's like, well, why didn't you spend any of it? It's not my money. And I was terrified. And, I don't know where Radish is. And they say, well, we think he was beaten to death, his face disfigured. And it's like, here's your delivery money. Radish won't be. And like they say, what's Radish to you? It's like, he's just a guy who always brought me trouble. I was like, well, he won't be bringing you trouble anymore. And they tell him about him being beaten to death. And they let him go with the kind of delivery thing. And he just like slowly, he shoves everything in, and then he starts running along the side of the road. And it's funny because they pull up to kind of like this God's eye view above, and it's just like the cars going by, and it's so up, and it's just like it's like the ant that's maybe scrambled away. And at the same time, we intercut that with the parents taking a walk after visiting the where the son's ashes are interred, and the kind of all the things of like outliving your child kind of flashing on their faces, especially the mother. And they go for a walk in the countryside, and he says something, like, why haven't you helped Aho? It's like, well, he's got to seize the day, choose his path. It's like, don't you stop saying that? It's like, it's a joke when you say that. It doesn't mean anything. It's like, you're a driving instructor. When did you ever seize the day and choose your path? At which point he tells of watching Aho, of basically watching him day and night, because he knew about Radish and the stuff of like Radish popped in on the mother and Aho's wife and child at some point. And so he starts watching Aho until Radish comes back that night. And when he sends him off into the woods, Radish stands by the side of the road smoking, and the father floors it, smucks him against a thing, smashes him into the windshield. He's still alive at that point, drags him into the woods, and it's like, it's raining now, and it's like Radish starts coming to, but it's too late because the father has a giant boulder and smashes the fuck out of him. We only just see the father lift the stone up, but it's like, and as she's telling them this, the mother is just like crying and just sobbing and just gasping and just like in horror. But also, I don't know. It's also just like, it's this thing of like, oh my God, you killed a man, but also, oh my God, maybe you did something for your son, because she strikes him and she strikes him again. And then he's holding her and she's sobbing in his arms. And it's like, and he says like, I used to say I only had like, women would say to me, oh, do you have a wife? Do you have children? It's like, and I would always say I only had one son, because I had disavowed Aho. I only had my older son. But now when they ask me the same question, I say I have one son, because it's true now. I have one son. It's just, and that I think it's a scene that just hammered at me, is that scene there. Um, yeah, and you don't know, I don't think it's a good thing that you would murder someone, you know, but it's also, it's like an oddly a thing of love. I don't know. And anyhow, they're clearing out the older son's room now. You know, maybe that they've gotten to that point. They're clearing out his room, and I mean, it's been years at this point, but they're clearing out his room, and they find all these books. One of the books that the father actually visited the older son with, to bring the tuition in, and it was that, you know, seize the day, choose your path. And he'd been giving them that book year after year after year after year, and he said, like, well, you know, they're putting all his books into recycling. It's like, yeah, just take those too. Don't let your father see him though. And then Eos is like, okay, let's go for a walk. And they stop and Eos steals a bike, and they go for a ride in the sunshine. And the mother looks up at the trees, and behind the trees, flickering, is the sun, a sun. And yeah, I'm sorry, I just kind of just had to tell the story of that movie. Um, um, is it seizing the day, choosing a path? Is it just kind of muddling along? Is it actually maybe at the end accepting a child, accepting a partner as who they are? I'm not quite sure. A beautifully shot movie. Beautifully shot movie. A lot of anger, a lot of sadness, a lot of just how structured and tight things are. You know, how unforgiving, how humble, you know, all kind of fairly humble people. I mean, even the son who was being pressured to be a doctor, you know, obviously kind of high status, you know, was a student who had failed his exam once. And it's like, was he going to do it again, or was he going to be a quote unquote failure like the rest of the people in his family? Which they're not. They're not failures. And just the son. Yeah. All right. So yeah, that is A Son. Uh, I'm my movie a week thing is going along well. Yeah, because this is exactly the kind of thing that I had hoped to encounter. Is kind of that movie where you kind of just trying to let it sit in you. That child sitting in the water tank, in the empty water tank. Yeah, in the darkness. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, more videos later.